Hey, what's up, Spencer? My name is everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So about a week ago, we got the new live-action trailer for Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender, and as I was watching through it, I started to think, you know, this show actually might not be as bad as I originally thought it was going to. Now, it's clearly not perfect, mind you. I absolutely still hate Zuko's scar, but as I was watching the scenes with all of the bending and stuff like that, I was thinking, you know, maybe I have been a little bit too tough. Because when it comes down to it, my autistic ass, what it wants from a live action is for everything to be exactly the same, shot for shot, line for line, but when it comes down to it, that's not realistic, and I have to accept that things, when they're made into live action, there's gonna be differences, and that's okay. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. And then we got this article. Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender series took out how sexist Sokka was in the original. Quote, "A lot of moments in the show were iffy." Tell me you haven't watched Avatar: The Last Airbender without telling me you haven't watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. Because yeah, Sokka did say some pretty sexist stuff at the beginning of the show, but I wouldn't necessarily call anything that he did or said iffy. You know what was iffy? That scene where Uncle Iroh pretended to be paralyzed just so he could cop a feel on June. Ooh, did you guys do anything with that one?
Uncle? I didn't see you get hit with the tongue.
When Avatar: The Last Airbender makes its live-action debut on Netflix next month, Sokka's sexism will be toned down considerably. Cast members Kai Wentio and Ian Owsley, aka Katara and Sokka, informed fans that Sokka's sexism was discussed during the live-action show's development and was cut away as it had no place in the live-action remake. No wonder the original creators stepped away from this when we're stripping characters of their base personality. There's more weight with realism in every way. Huh? How does that make any sense? How can you say you're making this show more realistic and then cut out any misogyny that was in the original show? Like, yeah, I understand, like, how shitty it is to deal with, like, sexism and stuff like that every single day and then come home and watch your favorite characters also have to deal with sexism, but if we're looking for misogyny escapism, perhaps the show about the genocide of an entire nation of people isn't the place to do it. For real, how can you say that you're trying to make this show darker and more edgier by showing the actual genocide of the Air Nation people, and yet at the same time try and say that it's too problematic for a main character to hold sexist ideals and then have those ideas changed and challenged? Because when it comes down to it, Sokka's sexism has a point. It's not there for no reason. And in many ways, it actually doesn't make sense for Sokka not to be sexist. Because let's take a minute and let's talk about Sokka as a character. What are his life circumstances? What has he gone through to bring him to this point where he really thinks that boys do this and girls do this? So Sokka has grown up in a tribe that has been absolutely stripped of its warriors. Any women warriors that were there, aka waterbenders, have been systematically kidnapped or murdered. And then after the death of Kaya, which is Sokka and Katara's mom, Hakoda, the chief of the Southern Water Tribe, took every single man from their tribe and went off to fight the Fire Nation, leaving Sokka as the oldest boy in the village. And as the oldest boy and the son of the chief, he was instructed that it was his job to keep everybody in the village safe.
Being a man is knowing where you're needed the most. And for you right now, that's here protecting your sister.
I don't understand.
Someday you will.
It didn't matter that there were adult women in the Southern Water Tribe. Sokka was told that as the only boy, as the only warrior in the entire tribe, it was his job to protect and defend and help all of the women and children and the people who lived in the Southern Water Tribe. And that was something that consumed his life for the next several years. His entire identity is based on the fact that he is the oldest boy and only warrior in the entire Southern Water Tribe. And we generally know Sokka as kind of this like wisecracking smartass, but at the beginning of the show, that is not who he is at all. Literally during the very first episode, while Aang and Katara are off doing penguin sledding, Sokka is back putting on war paint and preparing to die for his village. Sokka's entire identity up to the point of meeting Aang has been, I am the only man here and it is my job as the only man to protect everybody else around me. And for Sokka, it's not that he truly believes that women can't, it's just the fact that until he meets Suki, Sokka has never met a woman who can. As Entertainment Weekly notes, there are entire Reddit threads about Sokka's sexism discussing how the original Sokka, prior to his character journey, would make remarks like, girls are better at fixing pants and guys are better at hunting and fishing. Okay, so did you then go on to like read any of those Reddit threads? Because I can guarantee you none of the threads were actually complaining about the sexist things that he said in those first 3 episodes. And as you yourself have also stated, Sokka clearly grows and changes beyond these things that he's originally saying. And if you watch that actual line that they just put in the article in the context of the show, it makes so much sense on why Sokka is saying that. Because the show never just lets Sokka say sexist things and get away with it. The show immediately teaches Sokka why thinking and saying those things are bad. Not to mention the grander scale of the fact that this line is presented at the beginning of the Kyoshi episode. Sokka isn't saying girls are good at sewing and boys are good at warrior stuff just to be a sexist asshole. He's saying that stuff because the entire point of the episode is to then prove why actually women can be warriors and be just as good, if not better, than men. And yeah, technically we can have girl warriors show off their girl badassness without men having to shit on them and tell them that they can't, but it doesn't truly show how strong they are when they are not doing it in adversity to these things that are being said. Now, this also applies directly to the context of Avatar: The Last Airbender. This doesn't necessarily apply to every single show out there, but like for this show in specific, like it is very important for the female characters to be fighting against the sexism that is like given to them. Because at the beginning of the episode, Sokka doesn't even believe that the Kyoshi Warriors are even capable of getting a jump on him.
Show yourselves, cowards! Who are you? Where are the men who ambushed us?
There were no men. We ambushed you. Now tell us, who are you and what are you doing here?
Wait a second, there's no way a bunch of girls took us down.
A bunch of girls, huh? The Unagi's gonna eat well tonight.
Which then leads to him going to the Kyoshi Warrior studio and getting absolutely humiliated in front of all of these girls.
Let's see if you can handle this! Oh, that does it!
Anything else you want to teach us?
And it is at this point that we truly see the depth of Sokka's character and what makes him so important and so good and why his sexism is so necessary. Because Sokka could really double down on the sexism at this point. His whole identity up until meeting these girls is me man, me strong, me fight, me protect, and now that he is being shown that he actually can't do these things in front of all of these girls, he's been supremely humiliated. He could very easily stoke the flames of hatred and saying that like, oh, these girls are so stupid and they don't even know how to fight right and like all of this stuff, but he doesn't. Instead, Sokka goes to the studio, he gets down on his knees and he apologizes to Suki and then asks her to teach him the ways of the Kyoshi Warrior.
Spit it out. What do you want?
I would be honored if you would teach me.
Even if I'm a girl?
I'm sorry if I insulted you earlier. I was wrong.
We normally don't teach outsiders, let alone boys.
Please make an exception. I won't let you down.
This scene where Sokka is on his knees in front of Suki is truly the epitome of his character and what makes Sokka so beloved, because he has in this moment shown himself to be a true man. He has recognized that this other person, despite being a girl, is an incredible warrior, is a better warrior than he is. And he has the humility and humbleness to get on his knees, admit that he was wrong, and ask to learn. And this just really shows how great the writing for the show is and how in depth so many character arcs are, because we frequently talk about the character arc of Zuko turning from a bad guy into a good guy and frequently look over Sokka's character arc, probably because it's something that happens so quickly and right at the beginning of the show, but that doesn't mean that it is any less important or impactful. Because clearly we have established Sokka's sexism enough to be a defining enough part of his character that most fans are very, very upset over the fact that the writers have taken this part of him away. You know that you've written a good character when people freak out over stuff like this, because obviously in usual contexts, we wouldn't be fighting for a character to say and do sexist stuff. But it is such an instrumental and influential and important part of who Sokka is and who he becomes that it's clearly something that all of the fans think is absolutely necessary to the series. Not to mention how this development of humility here reflects later on in the series, especially in the Master Paku episode in season 3, when he learns how to do sword bending and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of the humility that he learns for Suki here is reflected in that episode there. So usually I would not be fighting for a character to have sexist ideologies and to like say and do sexist stuff, but clearly it is a very important part of his character because there is a reason why Sokka is initially sexist, and if so, we can then go on to show all of the badass women that are on the show and why it is so important for them to be badass women. We have Katara, we have Mai, we have Ty Lee, we have all the Kyoshi Warriors, we have Toph, Azula, oh my god. And these are all incredibly strong characters who half the reason why they are so strong is because they've had to be this way in the face of adversity. You know, it really feels that in the past few years we have lost any sense of nuance in any media whatsoever, and that we just have to lay everything out like we are 5 years old. Ooh, we can't have Sokka say and do sexist things because sexism is bad, even if he learns and grows from it. Boo! You know that people like have flaws, right? And you know that like people grow and learn and change from them? right? And like, it would only make sense for a character who comes from a backwater small village to have very close-minded ideas and then open up his mind as he experiences the world. Like, that is realistic, not the lack of sexism that we have for some reason. Honestly, this makes me super worried for the rest of the show, because so much of Avatar is nuance and subtlety and layers. Kind of the entire point of the show is that there's no such thing as a good side and a bad side. We are all just people who are trying to fight to stay alive. We are shown plenty of good people on the Fire Nation side. There are the children that Aang teaches how to dance. We have Master Pakku. We have Zuko and Iroh, even though Iroh is kind of like the entire reason why so much of the Earth Kingdom is under the control of the Fire Nation. He originally was the top Fire Nation general, and now he is considered one of like the most purest sin mineral characters in Avatar. And then on the other side, we also have a bunch of bad non-firebending people. We have that Earth General who wanted to get Aang to control the Avatar state so he could use them as a kind of like war machine. There's Hana, who used her bloodbending abilities to like kidnap and kill people. There's Jet. Ooh, I'm really worried about Jet. His whole entire thing is about killing innocent Fire Nation civilians purely based on their race. And in a show that lacks nuance or subtlety, it makes me worried about what they're gonna do with that. I really feel like this live action version, the writers probably boiled everything down to Fire Nation bad, everyone else good, which is the exact opposite point of the original show. Now, it was at this point in my Avatar Sokka freakout journey that I came across a post made by Tumblr user Sokka's Therapist, which, great username by the way, but they pointed out another important aspect to Sokka's character that seems to have been changed for the live action. So as we know, in the original show, after Sokka apologizes to Suki and convinces her to teach him the Kyoshi Warrior training, she does so, but not until she has him put on the actual Kyoshi Warrior uniform.
But you have to follow all of our traditions.
Of course.
And I mean all of them.
Do I really have to wear this? It feels a little girly.
It's a warrior's uniform. You should be proud. The silk thread symbolizes a brave blood that flows through our veins. The gold insignia represents the honor of the warrior's heart.
Bravery and honor.
Hey, Sokka. Nice dress.
But based on the clips that we are seeing from the live action trailer of him training with Suki and some of the fighting that seems to be going on Kyoshi Island, it doesn't seem like he's going to be in the Kyoshi Warrior uniform or makeup at all, which is incredibly disrespectful. Suki makes it known when they first start their training why exactly she is having him wear the Kyoshi uniform. And yeah, you might argue that the reason why they have him not do it is because they don't want to play into the transphobic man in a dress stereotype thing. But the thing is, Sokka wearing the Kyoshi Warrior uniform is not in and of itself transphobic. It's Aang's comment about it that makes the scene transphobic. A man wearing a dress or a skirt is not transphobic in and of itself. It's people's reaction to that man wearing a dress or a skirt that is transphobic. We can easily play the entire scene exactly the same, but change Aang's inflection on his line slightly, so where he's actually complimenting Sokka on his dress as opposed to saying it like a dig, and then the scene would be perfectly fine. In fact, I think it makes a lot of sense for Aang to compliment Sokka on his dress because Aang seems to come from an incredibly like non-binary type culture where people seem to identify as monk before they do boy or girl. We had to sometimes unravel storylines and remix them in a new way to make sense for serialized drama. Literally, What the fuck are you talking about? Avatar is already a serialized drama. In case you, like me, didn't know what serialized means, it means a piece of work that comes out routinely on a regular basis, you know, like comic books or a TV show. Like, I don't really mind them adding extra stuff into the show, especially if we're going to make it kind of a little bit darker and stuff like that, because I do recognize that there's a lot of things about war that you can't really get into in a show made for 7-year-olds, but at the same time, I think the fact that this is a show for children about the horrors of war is why it is so good. In fact, Netflix is adding in like the actual genocide of the Air Nation people. They're going to actually be showing that part on screen, even though we don't need it. In fact, I would argue that half the reason why the show is so good is because we don't see those types of things, and we don't need to see those types of things. In fact, I would argue that half the reason why the show is so good is because we never see that genocide. Third episode, Gang goes to the Southern Air Temple. Aang is happy, optimistic, all of this shit. Katara is trying to like low-key tell him that the air nomads are not around anymore without like fully coming out and telling him what happens, but you know, he's just optimistic and really happy because, you know, he's a fucking 12-year-old. That is, until we get to the moment when Aang finds Monk Gyatso's body and everything changes. Because it's really important that Aang doesn't see the genocide of his people, that we don't see the genocide of his people. Aang left, and he left the entire world behind for 100 years. For 100 years, Monk Gyatso's bones have been laying here waiting for Aang to come back. And it is finally when Aang sees his bones, not his body, but his bones, because that's how long it has been, that it finally solidifies to Aang the seriousness of this war and the reality of what is really happening. Bad things don't necessarily need to be shown for us to understand the context of how bad they are. Once again, coming back to that word that we seem to have forgotten, nuance. All right, so that's kind of like the end of the article. It just kind of wraps up by saying that the show is going to be out on February 22nd, which is about exactly 3 weeks from me recording this video. I'm probably going to be watching the show, but I will not be holding my breath because it seems very obvious that the people who remade this don't understand any very basic things about Avatar in the story and what is being told here. Like, why do we even do this if we don't even understand the basic themes and stuff like this? Jesus Christ, I feel like we have to go back to like 3rd grade reading comprehension stuff because clearly these people don't understand anything. Oh my god. All right, I need to go before I spend another like 30 minutes, hour ranting about everything that's wrong with this show, and it hasn't even come out yet. Definitely let me know your comments down below. I want to know your thoughts and opinions on the fact that they have taken away Sokka's sexism. I think overwhelmingly people agree with me that his sexism is an important aspect to his character and that it is important for Sokka to learn and grow and change from these things. But yeah, I would still like to know any details that you guys, any thoughts that you have. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more like it, blah, 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 obligatory YouTube outro. But besides that, make sure to have a fantastic day. Bye.